Hello, everybody, and welcome to another one of our Agile Shorts. I'm joined here by my partners at Agile Meridian, and today we're going to talk about ditching the silos. This is episode 48. This is kind of a continuation from our last Agile Short around the idea around knowledge debt. One of the things that contributes to knowledge debt is having a lot of silos within your organization. So we decided that this was going to be one of the continuation topics because a lot of people were wanting to find out more about knowledge debt. And we said, well, let's get into something more specific. So I think this is a great topic to cover. There's a lot of material to cover. We won't cover it all here today, but we'll touch on a few things around this. So I just wanted to kind of open this up to the group and talk about the idea around silos and how silos can impact and affect the way things happen in an organization and the way things flow within an organization, including knowledge debt that we carried on from last time. But there's a couple things out there, and I know, Kumar, you had written up some stuff earlier, I think this week, around some of the areas and some of the things around knowledge debt, both in terms of measures and things that you can do to kind of figure out what are the basics. What am I dealing with today? What do my measures look like today in terms of how siloing is affecting us? And then some of the things you can do to look at tactically to go after to try to improve how things flow, inclusive of how knowledge gets transferred around the organization and removing and reducing the impact of silos within the organization.
Yeah, I think it's useful to look at the impact of silos. What's the impact in terms of organizational efficiency, team morale, team engagement, and knowledge sharing, right? And so when you think about silos from that perspective, one of the most, I think, maybe not the only one, but one of the most impactful metrics would be how long it takes for teams or individuals in an organization to make a decision. So sort of like the time to decision metric, right? And so if there were no silos, or silos were efficiently managed and the flow of information was transparent and everyone would have the latest information to make the best decision, the time to that decision would be greatly reduced. You would only have to sort of have, 2 or 3 people that were involved in that decision-making process. A decision would be made and off you go. You learn from the decision that you've made, whether it was a good decision, a bad decision, and you get better at it. However, when you have silos, then it tends to increase the time that decisions get made because, more people have to see and weigh in on it, and so there's a lag there, and that results in operational inefficiencies. What do you all think about that? Maybe Jolly, maybe.
Yeah, and I think Kumar, you and I talked about this before, right before we started this, that a good indicator is what was mixed in with your comment there, which is the number of people, right? The number of people in those decision-making processes really impacts the time it takes to make a decision. Not surprising at all, because the more people that are involved, the more silos there are, per what you said, Kumar. Also, it will take longer because more people have to agree on any decision that needs to happen. So as much as possible, reduce the number of people to the absolute minimum without inviting the whole world to meetings that would take forever. And hopefully those decisions get made faster.
Yeah, Chris, what are your thoughts on that?
One thing that to reduce that number of people, I think you also have to look at trust, right? And do we trust the people that are making the decisions, and can we push that down a level, right? If we're looking for the VP to make a decision every time in our particular silo, then it gets in the way, and a lot of times we can just push that decision down and let the folks that are doing the work actually make those decisions. And a lot of times they know who they need to talk to and what's the best as they spread out across those various silos, right, and do the work.
Yeah, I think there's some really great, interesting technical and tactical things you can do to actually measurably improve this. And I think setting that baseline is really important, making sure you understand what current state looks like, and maybe understanding a few of the elements, even different types of decisions, right? There's decisions made because there's a situation. And then there's decisions made that are more strategic in nature or more purposeful or tactical in nature, and measuring those types of things. But we talked about this a little bit. I know the four of us have talked about this in previous conversations over different time periods and with different clients. Some of those things, what are some of those other things you can do tactically to do this? We've talked about empowering teams. We've talked about the number of people in the meetings. What about things around in terms of the people themselves? What are the things you can do to help individuals to make them more easily work across silos as they are? Because to your point, Kumar, we're probably not eliminating silos everywhere, nor is there really a need to, but we just don't want them to slow things down or to make things more complex.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. If you just eliminate silos, that would be sort of chaotic, right? Things probably wouldn't get done. Silos are needed. There's a purpose for them. They provide some structure and some organization within an organization. However, they shouldn't be a source of impedance to decision making, to the flow of information, to all those things that we talked about last time, which was those things build knowledge debt. So where information isn't clearly conveyed to other parties, right? So really establishing clear channels of communication, making sure people understand what their roles are. We talked in past episodes about the DRI concept, the directly responsible individual, and that applies within a meeting and also within a team or department or division, right? Who are the DRIs? Where do you go to get decisions validated? And anyone can be a DRI, because I think, to Chris's point, it's about psychological safety and making sure that decisions get pushed to where they need to be made, so that decisions don't always go up. Decisions go down, or should be made at the appropriate level where the work happens. I'll stop there and pause for other commentary.
I was just going to add there, Kumar. In addition to what you said, the silos also build up barriers to access to information, which will help you make decisions, right? So it is embedded within that clear channels of communication. But also, if you don't have access to the information that you need to make those, then you have to pretty much rely on other people for that, which also extends the time it takes to get to any decision.
And that contributes right back to the knowledge debt topic we were talking about last time. That's the direct tie-in, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and also I think it's useful, these clear channels of communication is to establish, okay, who is the expert in area A or area B or C? Not expert, but the who makes decisions of this type, so that you can kind of streamline decision making. Again, directly tied to the DRI concept.
That's like a transparency of knowing where to go to for what, right? Understanding who to go to for what. Okay.
Yeah, it's sort of creating a culture of transparency that, hey, if I have an issue, if I have something to share, then I know who I can share it with. Of course, my team, but then from there, how does that information get disseminated across to other teams, because they might use it, they might get value from it. Right. It sort of goes back into the idea of cross-functional teams and a cross-functional culture. And I think the working norms within a company, it's like, if you're new to a company, every company has their own culture. And if you're in a company that's heavily siloed, then, at least in my experience, people will feel lost for a while, because they're within their silo. They're waiting for instructions to come to them. Where in a company that has established some working norms around how information is shared, I think that learning curve is a lot faster. For a new person coming in, get assimilated in the culture a bit faster. What's your thought?
I was going to ask Chris, around the concept you had mentioned about empowered teams and what Kumar was talking about. What about T-shaped people? Is that something that can help with this type of situation? That idea of creating environments that T-shaped people can grow and thrive in?
Yeah, it helps a lot, because you, being a T-shaped person, you're very deep in one particular discipline, but you have a broad knowledge across a number of different things that affect your job. And Being T-shaped means that you can participate in that decision-making process. We don't have to go to the air quote expert, right? You don't have to go to the person that knows all the detail about it. If I think about the four of us, right, we all know about what good testing practices are, and we know them when we see them, right? And if we think about product management, we all know what good product management looks like. But yet, would any of us say that we are an expert in product management? Maybe a couple of us, right? But the others can participate in that process and collaborate as we go, collaborate as those decisions come up. So, the need to make those so you can get feedback and you get various people looking at it.
Good point. Mike and I were talking earlier about sort of what does a silo-less or a efficient organization looks like. And I think, Mike, you mentioned Roger Penske.
Yeah, I had a chance in college to Roger Penske had just bought Detroit Diesel, which was down the street from where I went to school. And he came up for the College of Business and actually went and we had a breakfast with him and got to talk to him. And then he gave us kind of a presentation on some stuff around business and evolving good business practice. And he used Detroit Diesel as his backdrop. And he said, we were losing $500 million when I bought the place. And in a matter of 2.5 years, I think 2.5 to 3 years, they had turned it around to a plus 500 million. And they had been losing money for a long time. And it was all cultural. I mean, everything he did there was cultural. And he de-siloed that place in several ways. He and the CHRO actually sat down and did a 30-minute PowerPoint of what Detroit Diesel does. And he said he had a 25-year veteran night shift security manager who came in and said, you know what? I don't even know really what we build. I kind of know, but not really. Nobody ever really told me about it. It's the first time everybody's ever sat down with me from the company, let alone the owner and CEO, and told me what it is that we do. He took the management structure, took the walls away for a while, and actually put like his desk in the middle of what was going on, and then put everybody else around him. So he was physically breaking down physical barriers in different parts of the building. And they had Gemba walks where they would get close to the work and they would go to where the work is happening, the people. So he did all kinds of different things to try to physically and culturally de-silo the organization. And he was able to turn the company around in a pretty quick period of time.
What's a Gemba walk, Mike?
So a Gemba walk is something that it's that concept of going to where the work is, right? Of going and seeing where things happen. We talked a little earlier in this presentation around the concept of moving the decisions towards the work, moving the decision to where the work is. Well, this is about moving the people to where the work is, the leaders, the different members of the organization. Instead of having people come from the plant floor up to you in your ivory tower and talk to you about what's going on, you go down to where the work happens. You go down to what they're dealing with, and you actually get involved in the actions and activities of your organization where they're happening. It's about going and meeting people where they're at and seeing those things happen in real time and getting a better understanding of what's really going on so that you can appreciate the strengths and the opportunities that you have to make improvements.
So I would caution one thing: if you ever try the Gemba walk, it's not as easy as it sounds. It's not about just getting up from your seat and going and walking the floor. There's an education that needs to happen in both directions.
Yes.
Right. Normally, but there is this fear with the let's say common people in a company, the team members, the associates, if you want to say that word, that I don't know how to talk to leadership, and I don't understand what the leadership talks about most of the time. And there is that strategic versus tactical gap that exists in what the leadership talks about and what the team members talk about. So there is an education in both sides for the leadership to understand that what the team talks about is not going to be all strategic, all high level, all big picture. So they have some learning to go through to understand what happens at the team level and talk to the team at that level. And for the team members to understand what is the most important thing to talk about rather than say everything that's going on around them.
John, I think that's a really important thing to remember in all of these different tactical types of things you can learn how to do, or even some of the outcomes you're trying to achieve. there's a learning process to go through this.
Yeah.
And we talk about this with empowered teams. It used to be that with open space when it was first created, people just create it. They thought it was about the physical space. They just create this open space and everybody was miserable. They hated it because nobody went back and looked at why the space mattered, why it worked better, what it did. And nobody ever sat down and really understood what was going on in the dynamics of the humans in that space. They thought it was all about the space. So any of these things that you're thinking about, T-shaped people and moving the decision-making towards the work, empowered teams, they all take some learning from all of the participants involved, all the way around, everybody that's involved in that, to understand why is this important? How does it benefit us? What are the challenges we could run into or the risks if we don't do this right? And what is a good way to approach learning it and then implementing it iteratively so we can all feel, to Chris's point, psychologically safe in making this transition.
Does that caption capture sort of what you two have been talking about, doers and deciders? Because leaders can be doers too, right? And leaders can be deciders, and employees can be leaders and in their own right, and they may be doing things, but they may also be deciding things. And so the way I see it is sort of investing and learning for what decisions can I make as an employee, as a doer, and what decisions do I need to get someone else to help me make? If I'm not the decider for that decision, but I'm just doing the work. So getting closer with the deciders, the leaders, if you will.
So this topic, like most of our topics, is really deep. It's got a lot of things you can look into, and we're about 16 and a half minutes through. So we're probably reaching the end of our time here. However, there's a lot to look into. I know the title of this short was getting rid of ditch the silos, right? But it's really about ditching what the silos do in a lot of organizations. It's about getting rid of the waste that can be in silos and leveraging what silos do benefit you for in terms of being able to organize and structure large areas or scaled areas of work. So any other last comments from any of our partners here?
I do. Couple of tactical things. One, as it turns out, it's a shameless plug. In terms of investing and learning doers and deciders, one thing you can do is use Management 3.0's delegation poker as a way of being able to establish who's making what decisions in what time frame, right? What scope. And then the other thing I would say that we haven't talked about, we did talk about trust. We haven't talked about the fact that transparency is critical, right? I've got a customer right now that I'm working with where decisions don't show up. People don't know decisions are being made. They just get made, right? And then somebody says, well, I didn't know that was going on, and it causes an uproar. And one of the things that we've been doing is we've been treating risk and issues much like or including decisions like you treat risk and issues, right? What are the decisions coming up? When is the latest time we can make it? And who is the person or who needs to be engaged to make that decision, right? And by being transparent and saying that and just getting it out, even if it's something that only impacts the team, you don't know that it only impacts your team. You think so, but there are a lot of decisions that get made where somebody says, well, I didn't know that decision was going to be made, right? Or I didn't understand what that was. And if we're just open about decisions and being transparent about it, I think that adds a lot to it, right? We're not trying to take away anybody's power of making a decision. We just want to know what the decisions are and how they get made.
Yeah, that's really great. And that idea of visibility to help that reduce uncertainty is huge, right? That's taking a lot out of what silos do generate inherently in scale organizations. So once again, thank you everybody for joining us. We're excited to see you here. There'll be more topics on both knowledge debt and on some of the silo type activities that you'll see coming down the future. Excuse me. And we look forward to seeing you on our next Agile Short.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Arrivederci.